The Mayberry Investments Limited Virtual Investor Forum has been the standard for investor education in Jamaica for decades, where top financial minds provide comprehensive insight into the market and ideal investment strategies and opportunities for our clients. Celebrating 37 years of excellence in investment banking. The Mayberry Virtual Investor Forum, investing in Jamaica.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to our virtual investor forum. I'm your host, Dan Theok, Senior Vice President of Investment Banking. Today we'll be reviewing Supreme Ventures Limited, and we'll have a special guest in the form of Executive Chairman of Supreme Ventures, Gary Parrott. Specifically, we'll be looking at the first quarter's performance for Supreme Ventures Limited. I'd like to give apologies for our Executive Chairman, Christopher Berry, who won't be able to join us today. So in studios, you'll just have Gary and myself. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you, Dan.
If you're a fan of the content, then don't forget to subscribe. Also hit the bell to stay up to date with the channel. We upload content just like this, just about every single week. Also, if you're looking to embark on your very first investment journey, you should take that very first step with Mayberry Investments Limited. Follow us on social media to learn more about how you can get started today. Okay, so as I said, we're going to be looking at Supreme Ventures Limited, and just want to give you a little bit of background. SVL, its main activities are comprised in betting and gaming and lottery operations. The company currently operates through segments such as gaming and hospitality, sports betting, horse racing, and pin codes, or phone cards as I like to call it. In 2019, SVL expanded its network to Guyana under its iBet Supreme ban. And in January 2020, the company formally took over Champion Gaming Limited. This is following the completion of its acquisition of the Jamaican-based gaming company, which has more than 1,200 machines and root video lounge terminal businesses across Jamaica. SVL didn't slow down since then. In March 2021, the company announced its partnership with the Jamaica Olympic Association. This collaboration aims to develop sports and athletes in Jamaica. The deal pledges support for the association over 3 years to the tune of 45 million Jamaican dollars. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about the Executive Chairman of SVL, Gary Parrott. Over the years, Mr. Parrott has worn many hats in the business sector. He's a director on several boards, namely Iron Rock Insurance Company Limited, Mayberry Investments Limited, and of course, Supreme Ventures Limited, where he's the executive chairman. To date, he has over 20 years experience in corporate finance and was named top CEO in 2015. Mr. Parrott joined the SVL board in 2020 as the executive chairman. Let me tell you a little bit now more about SVL in terms of, we want to look at the results for the first quarter, which is March 30th, 2023. So I'll do a quick overview on those results, and then we will be jumping into some Q&A. So folks, for those of you out there who have questions, feel free to put them up in the chats, and we'll get to them so we can have a discussion. Okay. On to the Q1 results, which are March 31st, 2023. First up, I want to highlight the fact that ticket sales for the quarter were $27.8 billion, which is comparable to the previous period, same time last year. And they had total winnings of $21.8 billion. That's up 5.63%. When you put that all together, you'll see they had net gaming income of $12.8 million, as shown on the P&L there, which is up about 1%, $149 million over the same period last year. They had direct expenses of $10 billion, which is up by approximately 1.5%, or $205 million. And their gross profit was reasonably flat at $2.8 billion. SG&A was up 14% to $1.856 billion. And in a note to their financial statements, they noted this higher SG&A was in preparation for entering the Ghanaian market, Ghana in Africa. So we'll definitely be talking about that, Mr. Parrott, as we go on. Hopefully he won't be as tight-lipped as he was the last time we had him on the program. And when you put that all together, the operating profit dipped from $1.36 billion last year to $1 billion this year, and that flows straight down to a profit after tax of $712 million for the quarter versus $1 billion for the same period last year. So about a 29% fall. And of course, again, that's primarily explained by the increase in SG&A expenses, selling, general, and administrative expenses. Business is still generating really good cash flows, though, $827 million of cash from operations for the quarter. Dividend of 24 cents, so the EPS, earnings per share, 27 cents. And what do? They declare a dividend of 24 cents. And that's pretty consistent with their dividend policy ratio. If you read their annual report like I did, you'd know their dividend policy ratio is approximately 90% subject to cash flow availability. So it's a company that's going to be paying strong dividends into the future based on a dividend policy. Also, when you look at the balance sheet, you can see their total assets are up by 2% to $18.5 billion. So a nice asset-rich company with $3.3 billion in cash, about $3.3 billion in accounts receivables. And in terms of liabilities, they have $1.8 billion in prize liabilities. And I'll definitely have a question for Mr. Peart about those prize liabilities, given this big recent Super Lotto winner for about $540 million. But again, to put that into perspective, despite that $540 million payout to Mr. Fraser, who won the Super Lotto, they had $21.8 billion in prize winnings in the first quarter alone. So that's really impressive. And we also saw them making note that, from their revenues of $27.8 billion total ticket sales, taking note of the fact that 93% of those revenues stay in the Jamaican economy and go to the benefit of the Jamaican economy. SVL is one of the largest contributors of taxes to the GOJ, and they also, pay back this money in prizes, in taxes, and in other operational payments, all local here in Jamaica. So that's significant contribution towards the Jamaican economies. Stock price at $27.70. Trailing earnings at $2.78 billion. Stocks trading at 26 times PE, which is a little bit rich relative to the main market average. But I think it's trading rich because the market perceives that this thing's about to blow up. And when we talk a little bit more about the earnings potential of this business as they look to expand, I think you're going to agree with us that PE is probably fair, and they're going to very quickly grow into those earnings. Stocks traded at a high of $34.67 in the last 52 weeks and a low of $19. So if you bought this thing at $19, you'd already be up by 20%. Next slide shows the profit the revenues, by segment. And you can see that approximately 48% of their revenues come from the lottery business. About 28% comes from sport betting. Just a little fall off there from $3.7 billion last year to $3.5 billion this year, and I'm talking about quarters. And the PIN codes, or the telephone credit, accounts for about 25% of their net revenues at $3 billion, and that was relatively flat for the period. So no material changes in the segment revenues. Next slide shows, I believe, that composition in the pie chart. The following slide shows the performance by quarter, the profit performance by quarter. And as you can see there in the green tab, we sort of show Q1 this year versus Q1 in the previous year. And as we said before, that's down by approximately 22%, but still good when you look at the last 10 quarters, still good to see the profitability looking very healthy. I'm going to predict the standard is $1 billion per quarter going forward. That's the requirement I have of Mr. Peart as a shareholder, and I'm a happy shareholder of SVL. I personally don't gamble. I buy the house. I buy the stock because I know it's going to win. But I encourage you guys to support the brand in any way you see fit. If you feel like gaming and sports betting, hey, good for you. If you want to buy the stock and be smart like me, even better. And then on the last slide, we show how the stock price has moved over the last 2.5 years. And as I said before, it's had a high of $36 and a low of $19. And it's traded, pretty firmly in that sort of $27 to $30 space. And my expectation is, as interest rates trend down, we keep saying this, Jamaican inflation is now coming into the target range of 4 to 6%. I think the central bank will have no choice within the next 2 to 3 months to start easing off on interest rates despite the 25 basis points increase that we saw by the Fed in North America. Their challenges are very different from ours. In our case, the Jamaican economy is growing superbly. We've heard the three criteria and the fact that we're above pandemic levels in terms of unemployment, debt to GDP, and GDP growth. So we're doing well. Inflation now trending right back into the 4 to 6% range. And so I think the Bank of Jamaica will see there's no need to be keeping up this high interest rate regime as those interest rates trend down. And I'm telling you that's going to start to happen within the next 2-3 months. Then we're going to see the PE ratios on the market in general increasing. PE ratios that generally trade inversely to interest rates. As the PE ratios grow up, stock prices will also grow up because we're going to see more folks moving from fixed income back into equities. And I think the last half of the year, last 4 years of the year in particular, we're going to see tremendous activity in the stock market. I think we'll see no less than 5 more IPOs to come. And so the market's going to get really hot. And more importantly, coming back to SVL, I think we're going to see profitability jumping. So with that, that's my review of SVL. I really like it, generating great cash, a near monopoly because the competition's pretty much nowhere to be found. Still good profitability, great growth over the last 5 years. I bought this stock 5 years ago at $10, and I'm a very proud owner of the stock. I see this thing growing by 40 to 50% in the next 12 to 18 months because of my expectations of the growth. And let's see if my expectations are correct. So we have 2 or 3 questions coming up for you, Mr. Parrott. But once again, welcome to the program. Good to have you back.
Thank you, Dan. Pleasure to be here.
And we'll have a few questions for you and give you great opportunity to talk about what you're doing over at SVL. So let me start with 2 or 3 questions first, and then we'll get into a good rhythm. So guys, show me the first question you have for me, for Mr. Parrott. Okay, let's start with the obvious question. What exactly led to the uptick in expenses? What's happening there? We hear a little bit about preparing for the Ghanaian market. So let's start right there. What's up?
There are a variety of factors. I think there are 3 fundamental ones. So one of the first things, we invested in a solar solution out at Caymanas, and our expectation is that once that was completed, we would start to see substantial savings, certainly on electricity bill over at Caymanas. Caymanas uses approximately $110 to $130 million in light electricity per year. Unfortunately, after commissioning the solar system, we have not been able to fully implement it, especially with the stables, because of what we inherited. And so we've had to delay that, and as such, we still have those expenses coming through. That probably for the quarter would have been $30 to $40 million. Ghana, as I've alluded to, the most important thing that has actually happened in the business of SVL in the last 2 years was we developed our own proprietary software. And, the moment we did that, it has fundamentally changed the total value creation and prospect of the business. But, for some reason, I think the market and the shareholders out there have never fully understood what that meant. And so, we have deployed that proprietary software in our Guyana market. The market in Guyana is relatively small. It's a population of about 300,000 people relative to Jamaica with 3 million people. But what it has done, it has allowed us to perfect that software. And why it's important? Because it was the final leg of SVL becoming a true gaming business. And I've alluded on several occasions, probably even here as well, Dan, that, this is going to be the game changer for the business, because what it does, it allows Supreme to be able to bid on potential lottery licenses or partner with potential lottery licensees anywhere and across the world. And, we were pleased last week to announce that, our partner in Ghana, Game Park Limited, was awarded a lottery license to operate in Ghana. And SVL actually signed a deal with Game Park where we would provide technical services and other services to Game Park. to roll out that business. Why is that important? As I said before, the population of Jamaica is approximately 3 million people. The population of Ghana is 34 million people. So you do the math, from a population of 3 million, we make 20 million US a year. So, when we roll out all of our different products, etc., in Ghana over a 2 to 3 year period, you can do the math, right? So we have high expectations for the Ghana market. There are also several value-added things that we would expect there. Now, the license is expected to be dated May 1. We have 90 days to become operational. That would carry us to somewhere around August 1 when we would start to roll out our solutions there. So, back to the questions. So in anticipation of that, stuff like your travel expenses, software development, all of those things are now fully in train, and a lot of those expenses bled into the quarter, which, as you've seen where there's been a 14% jump in SG&A for the quarter, and those are primarily the two key things. I think the good thing is that as we get into the second quarter, because the company is now fully focused on rolling out the Ghana project, I think once we have done that, there is an opportunity on the IFRS, as you know, Dan, as an accountant, to look at some of those startup expenses, and we may be in a position to capitalize a lot of those expenses, which I think will redound to the benefit of certainly the third quarter, because you'll be able to amortize it over a finite period, which would ultimately reduce the expenses in the third quarter. So what you're likely to see is, once the game is accepted in Ghana, you like to see additional revenue and potentially lower expenses for that quarter. And then as it picks up, the expectation is there based on the proportionality of the population.
Great. So let me see if I can understand this clearly, Gary. So you guys are, I presume, the exclusive technology service provider to your partners in Ghana.
Correct.
Similar to how you receive that service
in Jamaica. From my American lottery software.
That's correct. That's correct. And is that number a number you feel comfortable in saying in terms of what you cost, approximately what you're paying for this service here in Jamaica? It's a substantial cost that's flowing through to your P&L today.
I mean, it's public, and so I can speak to it. So, in the same way we made $3 billion last year in net profit.
3.7, yes.
Yeah, we paid out approximately $2.7 billion to our lottery software provider in Jamaica.
So part of your expense is $2.7 billion to receive that service. And you've
Correct.
now put yourself in a position where, for all expansion opportunities, starting with Ghana,
Yes.
you now are the service provider.
Correct.
You won't incur this expense going forward. In fact, you could earn this income from the service provider in Ghana.
Yes.
Okay.
So, if my partner in Ghana does what SVL does here in the Jamaican market in a proportional way,
Yes.
we could look on a similar outturn. And the beauty about it is that it's less risk to us, because we have a software that we have developed, and we've amortized the cost of that software. So as new markets come on board, you're using that same software.
Yeah. So the income's just going to flow straight through to the bottom line.
You don't have the risk of operating the lottery. You just provide the services.
Good deal. And it's my experience, Gary, and my understanding that, while it could take, a year to roll out all of your services in Ghana, I believe usually within 3 to 6 months, you're going to know if this thing's a hit.
Oh, definitely. And so the license allows us to roll out our Pick 1 product and Pick 4. And so in Jamaica, our Pick 1 is called Cashbot. We'll probably use a different brand in Ghana for Pick 1.
Yep.
But certainly the Pick 4 is similar. That will roll out there.
Very good. So similar folks into the way, within 3 to 4 months of the competition coming to Jamaica, if you didn't see them make a dent, I don't expect them to make a dent, because the point is, this thing usually, it's a hit or a miss, and it's either your competition comes in and does a great job, like we saw with a Digicel versus Cable and Wireless, or they just don't, and they sort of peter off. That's my views as an analyst, and so there's been some kind of competition around for over a year and a half now, and I'm just not seeing them. While the results aren't public, the point is we don't see any impact whatsoever on the ticket sales of SVL. So from that point of view, I can make that inference. Okay, Gary, tell me, how many territories does SVL currently, air their games in? So we just want to talk about
Yeah.
the games business. As we said, you have several revenue streams. We showed the
Right.
three main segments. Let's just talk a little bit about how you air your games. When I want to think about SVL as a digital company, not only operating in Jamaica.
Right. So, quietly, Supreme has become a global company. So as you know, we're in the Guyana market, and we also have a deal in South Africa where we air the draw in South Africa. We don't partake in the actual gaming structure there. So we just get a fee for providing the service of the draw. In Guyana, we do the draw, but we also have a gaming business on the ground in Guyana. And then obviously we're now in Ghana. And so, once we become operational come the 1st of August, we'll be there in Ghana. So that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4 jurisdictions, including Jamaica.
Okay, very good.
At this point.
Very good. And help us to appreciate what SVL is. A lot of people think of it as a gaming company or a lottery company.
Yes.
I mean, there are other sectors and segments here, and I like to think of it as a digital service provider. But how should we think of SVL?
Well, as I've said before, the average person thinks of SVL as you said, a gaming company. We see SVL as a transaction company with currently gaming bolted on. And I think the last investor briefing I did, we're seeking to morph the company now into a technology company, and we're going to announce in the next couple of weeks a new role to show you how serious we are about building a technology business. So we have created a post that's called Chief Enterprise Architect, and that individual is going to drive the build out of our technology platform for a variety of services that we plan to offer, not just in gaming, but in several other areas. So you may have heard of our fintech company, SVL Fintech. Currently, we have our proprietary product called ChargeUp, which is similar to the PIN codes. So we are looking to roll out several businesses in a digital space to deal with that. We now have a bill payment business through our proprietary software as well. We're seeking the necessary approvals to start offering the services of the major utilities, etc. So we're just waiting on that runway. And then also, fintech will allow us to do other things in the digital space. So again, we're seeking the relevant approvals, certainly from the Bank of Jamaica, which will allow us to really show what we're doing from a technology perspective. But, there's a particular process, and we're following that process with the central bank, and we hope that in a relatively short period of time, we'll get the necessary approvals to be able to give more opportunity and benefit and solutions to our customers.
Yeah, I mean, that's exciting, Gary. And 3 thoughts on that. So again, in the first quarter, folks, we said they had ticket sales of about $28 billion. So it means they're handling 4 weeks. It means they're handling, $7-8 billion cash per month. A lot of cash.
Yes.
A lot of cash.
Yes.
Perhaps one of the largest, cash handling organizations in the country. This is like a big bank, quite frankly. And so what the digital solutions does, in my mind, Gary, is gives us a way to move into digital wallets, mobile apps, to move away from cash, which is very expensive to handle, by the way.
Yes.
You guys must pay huge amounts of cash handling fees, and we've seen what's been going on recently with the Brinks trucks and whatnot. So I'm excited about getting away from handling cash like that. Yeah.
We hope we don't fall into that category. But that's actually another reason for the increased expenses. We've been spending a lot of money on beefing up our security. But just to make the point that the business model of certainly lottery, whilst you see the top line in terms of the $20 billion, that's the revenue. But also our retailers pay winnings. So the net cash is what we receive.
Got it.
So, for retailers who actually pay and cash those winning tickets, the net cash that they hold is not as much as you would see on the top line. But yes, we still move a certain amount of cash. But we have been putting in different initiatives to try to reduce the amount of cash that our retailers have, because every life is important. The welfare of our retailers are very, very important. And so, for example, one of the things we're considering is moving towards twice weekly lodgements. So therefore, the size of the lodgements are much smaller.
Right.
And with them being smaller, they obviously won't be a target.
But we've seen the sports betting segment pick up, and that's obviously electronic, right, Gary? So it's
Yes, it is electronic as well as physical. So within the sports betting space, there are two fundamental models. There's a transactional model which is just bet. You come in and you just buy and leave. But there's a relationship model, which is any bet, where people come in at 8:30 and don't leave until 11 o'clock in the night. So with the relationship model, it's more in your face and physical.
Right.
Whilst the just bet model, which is more transactional, we find that more people participate online. But just to make the point, we have an online solution for most of our games. So you go to SV Games, you can download the SV Games app, and you can buy your Super Lotto. As a matter of fact, the winner for the Super Lotto before this last winner actually bought their ticket on our online solution. We have online solution for horse racing. We have Acropolis online, and so we have online solutions for most of our products. So we're seeing nice take up, and that is why we feel with our fintech solution, we could help not just the Bank of Jamaica, but the government of Jamaica in expanding the digital reach to the underbanked and the underserved.
great. And when I think of your 24 billion plus in prize winnings that you've recently paid out, that would be tremendous. I happened to witness the Super Lotto, Mr. Fraser receiving his check, his
King Fraser,
his check for $540 million, and I thought to myself, wow, this is great, and I hope he will put that money to good use. Okay, so let me start to take a few questions from the folks out in social media land. We still have a few more to go. We still have about 28 minutes to go on the program. I'm going to start off firstly with Mikey J, who says, are there plans to move sports betting into Ghana?
Well, going into Ghana, I mean, obviously we're in with pick 1 and pick 4. And once we get into the ecosystem and start to understand the ecosystem, we have several other games, So in Jamaica, we have 11 gaming products, in addition to sports betting that you speak about a while ago, Dan, and as well as horse racing.
Right.
So once we get into the ecosystem and we understand what the ecosystem is about, certainly if sports betting makes sense, we will do that. So within Ghana and also the African continent, sports betting is a big thing, especially betting on football. And, so that's something that's right up our alley. But the key thing that the key mantra at SVL right now is focus and execution. So we're focusing on 2 products. We want to execute it well. We want to make it work. Once it works and it's starting to generate income, positive cash flow, then we can start to look on value added. So, everything is on the table. So sports betting or box business or horse racing business, the sky's the limit.
Excellent. Good. Next one coming in from Philip Burgess is, what's the status of the previously announced production company JV with Main Event Group?
Well, that's something that we're seeking to move forward. Fundamentally, we were looking to use that company to help to expand the Caymana's offerings, because where we are with Caymana's, we think that we've broken the back of some of the major issues from the core horse racing product. And, the name SVREL is Supreme Ventures Racing and Entertainment. And I think this is the year where we'll start to branch out into the entertainment segment, which would require the use of that production company. When we announced that deal, we expected that we would have moved quicker on that, but coming out of COVID, and then also our partner needed to stabilize themselves, which is where I think they are now. And so what we've seen already is we hosted one of the Domino series at Caymanas, and it was a major hit. And because there are people who have a view of Caymanas, but when you go to Caymanas, you realize it's just something totally different. And we were very pleasantly surprised by not just the turnout, but how well received the tournament was, certainly out at Caymanas. And what it has done, it has just reinforced our view that we can start to have several more events out at Caymanas and start to charge, whether rent for people to come in. And, we have several developments that we want to do out at Caymanas. So the chairman of SVREL, Solomon Sharp, mentioned that, he would love to host this year's Moté Mile on the lights, But what a lot of people don't realize is that when we install lights out at Caymanas, it opens up the space for significantly more things, not just with horse racing. So, for example, we could stage a night market at Caymanas. So, when people are going into Coronation, instead of going to Coronation Market, you could come to Caymanas. So, for the community of Portmore, after you come home from work, you could come to Caymanas and buy your groceries at a night market. In addition to which, we have been expanding our reach in the horse racing industry. And one of the things we've found is that different time slots are important. So we could actually host a horse racing meet. So we're in Hong Kong last couple of weeks, and they actually, on a Wednesday, they start their horse racing meet at around 6:30, 7 o'clock, and it ends at 11:30 at night. So people can come home, bathe, dress, and then go to Caymanas to watch a horse racing program in back until 11:30 in the night. So lights is something that would be a huge game changer, not just for horse racing but other value added like entertainment, and we have some great plans for Caymanas. So that production company is going to be very, very important for that next phase of Caymanas.
Excellent. Good deal. I appreciate that. Let me keep it going. A lot of questions coming in about Ghana. So Devon says, congrats on your success in entering the Ghanaian market. How much are you expecting this to contribute to the bottom line? Are you actively looking at other markets to enter to in that continent? So on the bottom line, let me help out, Devon. We gave a perspective of Jamaica having 3 million and that country having 30 million. So I don't think Gary's going to give any specifics, but it's potentially a market that could be 10 times bigger than Jamaica. And then his second ask of his question, though, Gary, is are you actively looking at other markets that you could enter into in the continent or otherwise?
Right. What you didn't say is that in a market of 3 million, we make 20 million US.
Yes.
So in a market of 34 million,
we could make 10 times the profit we're currently making.
There you go. Again, from the moment we have highlighted the fact that we not only have a proprietary lottery software, but it is also GLI certified.
Yep.
I've made the point that we are trolling not just the African continent, but the world, where we can seek to go in and bid on getting a lottery or bid on being a technical services provider. And this is anywhere in the world. So, that has opened a whole new channel for us. And obviously, as a Jamaican company, a relatively small Jamaican company, we're swimming in some very, very deep waters. But, we pride ourselves on being able to be successful. So Ghana happened. We're very happy about that. And, to answer the question, yes, we are looking at many different jurisdictions, and obviously it has to fit into our sweet spot. And I wouldn't be surprised if we make other announcements, within the year. I mean, look at it this way: So Ghana is seen on this African subcontinent as one of the more stable African countries. And as such, there are several African countries that border Ghana that uses the lottery draw from Ghana. So, when we set up our business in Ghana, that gives a certain level of credibility to our solution. That if it goes viral, if it's accepted, I don't think it'll only be accepted by people in Ghana, because as I said, the Ghanaian draw is beamed to, I think, about 6 or 7 additional countries, and the population in those 6 or 7 countries is in excess of 300 million people. So that being successful in Ghana creates a potential gateway for at least those countries.
Okay, excellent. Okay, the questions are really rolling in. Any other developments or news based on your Hong Kong trip, Gary? This is coming from Mikey J.
Well, so Hong Kong is horse racing related, and the simple point is that with everything that we do, we try to extract the potential that we unearth. And as I said to somebody the other day, when I inherited Caymanas at SVL, I thought it was the worst thing that could ever happen. I was not a big fan of Caymanas, but today when I speak about Caymanas, it's like one of the greatest things that has ever happened. And so where we are with Caymanas, Caymanas now have exported their signals, and we have partnerships with over 130 odd partners in the North American continent, including, so that's Canada and the United States. And there are other critical places that we can go, but for all intents and purposes, I think we have extracted about 80 to 90% of the potential in the North American market. So, in February we were put on the TVG FanDuel platform, which is huge. It's the largest horse racing platform in North America, and so we're there. And we're getting significant opportunities from that. So we have negotiations with several local companies about putting their brand on the jockeys, because when the jockey wins and now comes in, that is being beamed right across North America. So as a follow-on to that, we went to the largest horse racing conference in Melbourne, Australia, and we met with our Hong Kong relationships. We went to the mecca of horse racing, which is Hong Kong. And, so there are several different discussions that we're having in terms of, can we export a signal? Can we receive a signal? But more importantly, even with the running and operating of a racetrack, so an example, there is no certified expert in Jamaica that understand the horse racing track. Yeah. So even though we have one person on board that we speak to who comes every 3 years, we are now, with these relationships, we can be in a position where we can get different experts in different regions in the world. And we now have, instead of having one person, we'll have a team of 3 or 4 people that we can look to ensure, how do we improve our track? How do we do certain things a lot better? That's just in the business of horse racing.
Right.
In terms of the business of promoting a racetrack, these guys are some of the best at it. One of the things we were excited about, when we spoke to the guys at Hong Kong, when you looked on their plan, we found about 70 to 80% of the things they want to do at a high level in our plan as well. So we're not far off. We saw a new type of bet there for the first time, which we're going to incorporate here in the next couple of months. You'll hear about it. And so we're finding all of the best things in these different jurisdictions and coming here. But the key point is this. We are introducing ourselves into an ecosystem because we don't see Caymanas as it is today. We have a vision of Caymanas in 5-6 years down the road. And, for us to get there, to get into these high-level races, these huge purses, you have to be in the ecosystem. So you have to be amongst the best. So you're going to be going to the Triple Crown races. You have relationships with them. And, ultimately how we see it, Jamaica can become a jurisdiction where, for example, the cost of land in Ocala is increasing every year. it might be a better business decision to set up your breeding in Jamaica, rear the horses here, and then fly them up into the United States. It's it's an hour and 40 minutes to Ocala from Jamaica. It's 2.5, 3 hours to New York, you know. So these people are moving their horses back and forth within the United States. Jamaica can become a hub. These are some of the opportunities that we see, and we're talking to not just people in the United States, but across the world, you know, to look on Jamaica and Caymanas as a destination in horse racing. So as yet, we don't have any fundamental new delivery or news, but I think the best thing that we have gotten from our trip to Hong Kong is that new type of bet. It's called Quinella Place. We are going through the machinations in terms of the different changes to our software to introduce that kind of bet, because it's actually the largest bet in the Hong Kong market. And we think that bet will do very well here in Jamaica.
Good deal. But the potential, the takeaway, I think, is the potential growth in that segment is huge.
Yeah.
And the demographic as well, too, the expansion.
It is, as I said, you're in an ecosystem where, I mean, we visited an equine hospital in Hong Kong, and there's no human hospital in Jamaica that is anywhere near that equine hospital.
Yeah, you're saying a hospital for...
This is a hospital for horses.
For horses, just to be clear.
Right, and you know, so they have an MRI machine that's tailored for horses. They have X-ray machine for horses.
Unbelievable.
They have everything. Anything that you would want a properly functioning hospital to have, they have it for their horses. You know, but whilst it's next level, I believe Jamaica and Caymanas can get there. Because, you know, there's this mistaken belief that a racetrack cannot be sustainable on its own. Mm-hmm. We took up that very difficult task. That was the objective I gave Solomon. And between himself, myself, and the rest of the SVL group team, you know, that's what we're trying to do. So the Hong Kong Jockey Club that runs horse racing in Hong Kong, you know, have a sustainable business. The Hong Kong Jockey Club is the largest business in Hong Kong. It actually moves between number 1 and number 2 with an entity I think you might know. You know, have you heard of a bank called HSBC?
HSBC, unbelievable.
So a horse racing track is generating business that at some, depending on the year, is bigger than HSBC.
Wow.
Right? So we have set that as the you know, our goal to be similar to them. I mean, it is, what do you call it, a big audacious goal?
Big hairy goal.
Big hairy goal.
Yeah.
But we think we can do it, you know. So as I said, we're in the ecosystem. The people are hearing of us. We know what the parameters are, and you know, we have started a process of educating our local stakeholders. And I think they know that we can get it done, because we've been saying a lot of things over the last 5 years. You know, there were some people who didn't believe that we'd be here today, and we are. And we're not just here and stopping. We're continuing to build on it, because we think that it's going to be huge. So, for example, our Mute Mile 2023 that we've announced, the reality is that, you know, Solomon and the team, you know, Chris Wills and Aswanda, they're working on some stuff that, I mean, they're on the verge of confirming a deal that will carry the Mute Mile to the next level in terms of viewership, you know. But, you know, they say they don't like to tell me these things because I come and talk. But the simple reality is that we at Caymanas are now on the radar of a lot of international jurisdictions. And, you know, as I've said before, we are putting ourselves into a position that not only will SVRL benefit, but certainly our stakeholders, the jockeys, the grooms, the trainers, the owners, especially the owners, you know, will be able to benefit from a lot of these things.
I'm sure Howard will appreciate that.
My friend Howard.
Last one, hey, big up yourself, Howard. Last one on the Caymanas, David Rose is saying, I believe you guys were selling that signal into Australia. How's the effort to continue expanding where you're selling this signal to?
Yeah, so there's a platform that you can get it. I think he's probably making reference to our fixed odds solution with our partners, bet makers. So on the bet makers platform, people can bet from all the way anywhere in the world on the bet makers platform. But we have significant opportunity to export our signals to that side, to the northern, what do you call that now, the eastern hemisphere. So as I said, I think we're about 80 to 90% of our potential in North America. So we have South America that we're doing some stuff on. There's Asia, certainly Australia, and Africa to a lesser extent. So as I said, none of these jurisdictions are now out of our reach. We are on the map. We are in a position that we can pick up the phone and call any of these jurisdictions, and once we can work out a reasonable deal, we're signing those deals. As I said to somebody the other day, I remember when we were digging up the track, people thought we were mad people. Like, why are you digging up the track? And we're like, we're putting in HD cameras, But they didn't understand that you're putting in HD cameras to put yourself in a position to export the signal. When we signed our first deal, I'll never forget it, the first day we got $300. And we were happy like pigs in you know what, right? And today that number is multiples of $300. And we got to a point where we were just signing on different tracks and jurisdictions till people forget that we're in all of these different locations. So we'll continue that. And as I said, we're in negotiations with several jurisdictions, and I just leave that to Solomon to announce when he gets all of these good things on track. No pun intended.
Excellent. So another one coming in from David Rails. He commented on scratches being a big hit and drawing in a new demographic.
Yes.
And then I also have Ali and Wilson asking, are there going to be any new products from SVL in 2023?
Well, we're always innovating. When you said earlier that we're a monopoly, we're not your traditional monopoly in the sense that a monopoly finds a winner and they stick with it.
Yeah.
And nothing else matters.
No need to innovate.
So the simple reality is that Cashpot has been a winner. It has always been there. But, just like in Ghana, SVL started with 2 products, and today we have 11. So we're constantly innovating. We're not afraid to try and find a product that can beat Cashpot. I mean, so far that has been so resilient. We've yet to topple it, but we're not afraid to experiment, to not only to diversify, but within the gaming space, there's so many different segments. The gambler who buys a racehorse does not play Cashpot. The person that plays pick 1 don't play pick 2 or pick 3. The pick 6 guy don't play pick 5. So we're always finding different niches, and the best example is scratchers. Scratchers had failed 2 or 3 times. Once with us, I think 2 or 3 times with other entities, and we went and experimented again, and it did very well, especially in the first quarter of last year. It started to peter off, and when people started to realize what the ability to win was, so it has settled down. It is one of our consistent revenue earners. We have some new initiatives coming surrounding scratchers, and we're also seeking permission for a modification on one of our other games, which is Money Time. So we've come with Mega Ball, we've come with Monster Ball. We're constantly trying to understand and what the customers want and provide solutions that they'll be happy with. And as I said, that's why we're able to move from 2 games initially in 2001 to over 11 products within the gaming space that we have today at this point in time.
Good deal. Couple more questions coming in. Thanks for the questions, guys. We appreciate that. We've got about 7 minutes to wrap up the program. I want to try some folks who we haven't heard from before for tonight. Fitzroy Adams is asking if you can say, Mr. Peart, what's the structure of the arrangement with IGT? Is it fixed cost per year, or is there some kind of variable cost element, transaction-based, or size of purses, etc.?
What I would say, it's performance-based. I won't get any further into the details.
Say
but
no
as
more.
I
So,
said,
so the bigger the pie, the bigger the payment potentially.
definitely. As I said, my profit is equivalent to their payment.
Yeah.
So, they're very important.
Excellent. Ryan Wallace says, love the HSBC Bank. They're pioneers. Philip Burgess says, HSBC darn. He didn't say darn, but that's the word I'll repeat. And Ryan Wallace says, HBC investment funded projects always come to fruition. So thanks for those comments. Philip Burgess says, so SVL is now a SaaS company, service as a SaaS, SaaS, service as a software as a service. So yes, Philip, it is a SaaS company, much more than just a game company, very focused on providing digital transaction solutions and using their IT technology to grow the business as much as possible. And then David Rose asked a question, again, last one from David. What's the uptake of the Chukka Caymanas partnership being like? What are your thoughts on that?
The what?
Chukka Caymanas partnership.
Oh, you mean to bring
tours,
tourists?
the
No.
tours,
So we were not able to confirm that transaction. I think the timing wasn't ideal, but with certainty, as we get past the Mute Mile this year, and especially when you hear all the fandangles
And that's in
surrounding it.
December?
That's in December, the
Right.
2nd of December. When you hear all the excitement surrounding that, I think the stage will be set in 2024, to start a process of, offering tours, but there are certain things that have to go into it. And offering a tour can be a very expensive venture in terms of setting up the tour.
Right.
And there are certain things that we have to focus on that will drive more revenues before we fundamentally get there. But what I'm confident of, certainly by 2025, we should have a structured process in bringing tours, etc. Because as I said, again, once you get lights onto Caymanas, it opens the door to many other opportunities in terms of revenue generation, which in the hierarchy of revenue generation that is our core. The issue of tours might not rank as high in terms of a return for a tour, but we'll see.
Excellent. Well, congratulations on your first phase installation of the renewable solution, because
Yes.
with a light bill in excess of $100 million, that's certainly something you need to watch out for. And I think the nature of the way the park operated, with just 2 strong events per day, high demand charge, you'd find that your electricity use and bill would be inefficient. By the way, JPS structures their billing.
Yes.
I know this from my 16 years of experience. So moving to solar, it should be a huge move for you guys, help you to save significant amounts of costs. And then, as you said, put you in a place where you guys can offer a evening race program, which I
Yes.
think is huge. When I think of cricket and 2020 cricket and night cricket,
Yes.
and I really do believe that horse racing is viewed by many currently Jamaicans as being something for a lower demographic. And I think as you guys offer evening package and you can really nice it up, that you'll be able to broaden the
Right.
crowd that comes out. And as I know from the international events, whether in Hong Kong
Right.
or in the U.S., what's the biggest one in the U.S., Kentucky Derby or whatever.
Kentucky, Belmont, and Preakness.
Yeah, these things are really
Right.
for the high rollers, right? So it'd be great to see you guys targeting that crowd.
I give you several ironies, right? A lot of these events, they're brand name events, but when you go and look on the infrastructure, Caymanas when you look at Caymanas infrastructure relative to some of these other places, you'll be surprised that Caymanas has a better infrastructure than they do.
Really?
Because a lot of people see these things, just on TV, but they don't necessarily see them on different days, right? So that's one of the reasons we're excited, because we're not as far away from these places that a lot of people think, And so, as I said, we can create the same pomp and pageantry. Right. I mean, we love a party. We love a good party. That's Jamaicans,
Right.
And as I said, with our partner Main Event, they can put up any production, So we see Caymanas as one of those diamonds in the rough that is being polished now. And there's a lot of other things, as I said, that we can do. An interesting irony, right? So when I chatted with the head of marketing in Hong Kong, her issue is that, the only sponsor she can get are banks. They have the 10 largest banks that sponsors horse racing. And she's trying to diversify her sponsors, And in Jamaica, a lot of the banks are like, hey, our brand, can't be synonymous with horse racing. So it's like, can we swap, right? But again, what it is, every time I bring somebody out to Caymanas, they've always enjoyed themselves. And, what they find is that what is actually there is different from what people think, right? And so what that means is that, we have the responsibility to market it better, to make it better, so people can understand that this is nowhere like what some people are portraying it, to be. We think Caymanas will be a place, certainly in another 3 to 4 years, where people will go for evening entertainment. There's a lot of things that we can put out there that creates an ecosystem that, how you refer to it today, Dan, in 2 to 3 years, you'll never believe it's the same place. And that's one of the key things we're doing now. We're trying to change the culture. And, what people don't understand, right? Our Jamaican people are very resilient. I remember in COVID, when we were trying to reopen the track, somebody passed the comment, that, listen, you can never run the track at Caymanas under COVID because, that lower demographic won't comply. And I remember when we went to them and they're like, listen, Mr. Peart, we can't afford for the track to be closed. So whatever is required, we're going to do it. And, it's one of the things I love to say, and this is why I believe in my Jamaican people, right? We have never had one infraction from we putting those COVID protocols, right? And I want to give a big shout out to the grooms, the jockeys, the trainers, the owners, that ecosystem at Caymanas. They demonstrated and showed they had the maturity to abide by all of those protocols, the strict protocols. What people forget, horse racing was the first sport to resume its activity than most other, if not all other sports in Jamaica. And it happened because we were able to find that middle ground with all the stakeholders to make it happen. And from that day, I realized that Caymanas can become the best ecosystem in horse racing, jurisdiction. I have all the material I need. I have all the people that I need out at Caymanas. They just want a chance. And we at SVL Group and SVRL are going to create the environment for them to have that chance to significantly and materially increase their financial well-being.
Excellent. And with that, folks, we've run out of time. Mikey J, I'll give you the last comment. He says, make sure you bring a good culinary experience out at Caymanas.
Sure.
Well, folks, that's it for today. Guys, thanks so much for the questions. The participation was unbelievable. There are dozens of questions that I was not able to get to, but that's it for today's discussions. And I'd like to thank our viewers for tuning in as usual. Your support is always appreciated. And big up and thanks to Gary Peart for coming in and talking about SVL. Again, we really appreciate it. And look forward to the next quarter's earnings where you need to get back to $1 billion, sir. Those are your orders, if I can ever give orders to my boss. To our viewers, be sure to look out for our updates on our virtual investor forum by following us on social media. We share all things forum related on our social media pages. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You know what it is, Mayberry Investments Limited. And remember, wise investors, Mr. Peart,
slow and steady wins the race.
Thank you, sir. Keep safe, folks. All the best. Bye-bye.
The Mayberry Investments Limited Virtual Investor Forum